You're welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Kibi. The Senate kicked off its national public hearing on the amendment of the 1999 Constitution during the week. It had earlier held zonal public hearings across the country to get the input of Nigerians on issues for amendment in the Constitution. There are more than 16 issues to be looked at for amendment, such as gender equity, the federal structure in governance and power devolution, as well as public revenue, fiscal federalism, and revenue allocation. It was an interesting 2 days, and we heard the views of Nigerians on these important issues.
The Senate kicked off its national public hearing on Constitution Amendment in Abuja, the capital city.
Senate Committee on Constitution Review.
The current efforts to amend the 1999 Constitution is coming at a time when the country is grappling with worsening security problems, questions on nationhood, agitations for secession, and endemic unemployment. There were several presentations from individuals and interest groups on these issues and more during the national public hearing.
We are conducting this exercise in accordance with the extant legal order, which is the 1999 Constitution. Specifically, Section 9 of the Constitution empowers the National Assembly to alter the provisions of the Constitution and prescribes the manner in which this is to be done. Unfortunately, it does not make similar provision or provide mechanism for replacing or rewriting an entirely new Constitution. To embark on any process without prior alteration of Section 9 of the Constitution to provide the mode through which an entirely new Constitution could be written would amount to gross violation of our oath of allegiance to the Constitution. In other words, it would take a new constitutional amendment to Section 9 to be able to give Nigerians a most desired new Constitution. It would be unconstitutional to do otherwise.
There are more than 16 areas identified by the public for amendment. They include gender equity, power devolution, local government autonomy, state police, judicial and electoral reform, fiscal federalism, residency and citizenship, immunity for public office holders, timeline for assent of bills, state and local government creation, constitutional roles for traditional rulers.
The issue of local government reform is an important issue. The local government system in the country has almost collapsed. We believe that the efforts that the National Assembly made in the 7th and 8th Assembly will be brought to fruition by this 9th Assembly, and that local government will once again revive as a system of government that this country will cherish. We also know that there are issues regarding judicial reform, electoral reform, and several other issues already outlined. The National Assembly, of course, knows that the Electoral Act is presently before it, and we're all looking towards listening to the Senate President assure us that the Electoral Act will indeed be taken and concluded within this month of June, as has been promised by the National Assembly.
The 6th National Assembly actually saw the flaw in the current laws and attempted to cure it by inserting Section 140, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act, which you have. The Electoral Act, which we all have, Section 140, subsection 2, says that where an election tribunal or court nullifies an election on the grounds that the person who obtained the highest votes at the election was not qualified to contest the election, or that the election was marred by substantial irregularities or non-compliance with the provisions of the Act, the election tribunal or court shall not declare the person with the second highest vote or any other person as elected, but shall order a fresh election. However, the courts have nullified this as an attempt to whittle down the powers of the courts. However, if it is made a constitutional provisions, then in my view, the courts will have no option but to obey it.
We are deeply concerned at the poor state of women's representation across all elective and appointive positions in Nigeria. We therefore call for the creation of special seats for women in the national and state legislatures. This is in line with practices around the world in countries such as Rwanda, South Africa, and Samoa, which use temporary special measures to promote women's representation. We are therefore confident that creating special seats for women will directly increase their representation in the parliament. Our second recommendation is on electoral reform. Given the important role that the Independent National Electoral Commission plays in organizing elections, we believe it is improper that members of the commission are appointed by the president. We therefore recommend the amendment of Section 154 of the Constitution to provide for the appointment of INEC commissioners by an independent body. We believe that this will better protect the independence and impartiality of the commission. Another issue related to electoral reform is independent candidacy. We call for the amendment of Sections 65(2), 106, 131, and 177 of the Constitution to the effect that a person need not be a member of a party or sponsored by that party to stand for presidential, governorship, or legislative elections.
As we have said time without number, the minimum wage is also guided by a convention, Convention number 26 of the International Labour Organization, which Nigeria have domesticated many years ago in 1971. The national minimum wage is also not imposed on states. It's a process. All the governors are represented by one governor per each of the geopolitical zones at the negotiating table. So also employers of labor in the organized private sector, medium and small scale enterprises, and therefore all the factors are considered. Ability to pay, the cost of living, inflation, all those factors were presented. This has been the process. And therefore, the 30,000 naira that was agreed was not imposed on anybody by federal government. It was the process allowed by law that was adopted. So at this point, to come and say, well, remove it from the minimum wage because of federalism is also false. As I speak to you, 26 federal states across the world, including the United States of America and Germany, who have practiced federalism for over 200 years, have minimum wage preserved in their national laws. In our document, those issues have been made very clear. Minimum wage is about setting a minimum benchmark for all employers of labor to actually implement so that workers are not exploited. That's the principle.
But there have been persistent calls for the creation of a new constitution, as some Nigerians question the efficacy of the 1999 constitution in addressing the structural challenges facing the country. Opinions are divided on this matter.
Call for a big tent conversation around the single issue amendment for a referendum and a referendum commission for our deliberation on a new constitution for the country. We need to publicly agree a constituting of a representative new constitution conference. We need to inaugurate a national conversation to agree the participation, the process, and the agenda issues for the new constitution. We need to then complete the national conversation and distill it into referendum items for all citizens to vote on. And then we need to return that to the National Assembly. What we ask the National Assembly to do therefore is to single issue amend the Constitution to allow for referendum by the citizens of this country.
I don't support that one for all to get a new constitution. As a matter of fact, this constitution that we are operating, what is bad in it? You cannot have 100% perfection in any constitution. It all depends on the workability, how the people look at the constitution to operate it. If AJ comes tomorrow to give us a constitution, we will still have a problem of running that constitution. What we need is to abide by the spirit of the constitution, whether right or wrong. For us to say we want to start a new constitution, when are we going to stop it? In this constitution, what we're supposed to do is to amend some of the clauses that are not attuned with the reality of the situation right now. Not for us to stand up to say you want a new constitution. Now, when they are now agitating that the constitution is useless, this military give us this constitution. Who wrote this constitution? You remember that there was 50 wise men, and these people were Nigeria. that wrote this constitution. So why is it now that it is now people are now clamoring to say we want a new constitution, we want a new constitution? I know situation warrant things to be changed. It's not it is out of place for us to say you want to get a new constitution now. You can never get it.
No, we need the amendment of the sections that will impact positively on Nigeria. We don't need a new constitution. Amendment, as far as I'm concerned, is as good as bringing something new in the constitution. The entire constitution cannot be taken to be bad. Do you agree with me? The entire constitution cannot be taken to be bad. People are talking about devolution of power, which to me is interpreted to be physical federalism. Once the revenue, the sharing formula of the revenue of this country is changed in favor or to give states some more money, that addresses a lot of problems. That is what we need to talk about, not to talk about change. What are we going to change totally in the constitution? What is going to be new? Most of the things people are saying, a constitution is not a document that seeks to regulate every aspect of life of human beings. A constitution gives a direction. The other external law, for instance, women are talking about sexual-based violence. How can you include that in the constitution? The Criminal Procedure Act of this country address that issue adequately. And so a lot of people are either talking out of ignorance on most of the issues or just want to be heard. We don't need a new constitution. What we need to do is to amend the provisions that are not operational, or even if they're operational, they are not effective or not address the problems of Nigeria. For instance, devolution of powers, independence of local government. That is the autonomy of local government, autonomy of the judiciary, autonomy of state legislature, which is already in effect but not being practiced. Those are the things that we need to talk about. Once we address those issues, we have a new constitution.
On day 2 of the public hearing, more Nigerians present their positions on several areas for amendment.
Promulgate a law that brings about all the views you are currently collating, including the beautiful provisions of the 1963 Constitution. Promulgate a law that brings them together into a document. Then that law will state that a small, compact, constituent assembly of the people be elected by the people to come and finally debate those recommendations. And then they own it because they are now representing the people.
Nigerians in the diaspora believe that they should be able to vote at any time that INEC decides. Your Excellency, sir, we're talking about 17 million Nigerians in the diaspora contributing to world economies.
We're asking that the independence of INEC should be properly expressed in the Constitution, and also for the National Assembly to look at the issue of cross-carpeting and, of course, electronic voting.
I think we can do things with regards to restructuring, with regards to ensuring that the states take care of security. They have their own state police, as most people are saying now, because of the circumstances that we face of insecurity in our country.
Amending the Constitution is a tough process, and consensus will have to be built on all the areas up for amendment, both at the national and state levels. Going forward, the Senate Committee on Constitution Review will hold a public hearing, and the areas up for amendment will be put together in one document. Thereafter, it will be presented in a report before the Senate at plenary.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. The House of Representatives also held its zonal public hearings on the amendment of the 1999 Constitution. Now, some of the issues which topped the discussions were immunity for public office holders as well as local government autonomy.
Just as the Senate ends its national public hearing on Constitution Review, the House of Representatives is holding its zonal public hearings on Constitution Review. In Bauchi State, the NLC chapters of Borno, Yobe and Bauchi states present a harmonized submission calling for withdrawal of immunity from public office holders.
We request that immunity clause with particular reference to criminal investigation and prosecutions should be removed from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. and allow state governors and their deputies, president and his vice, to undergo criminal and other investigations when the situation warrants.
The Bauchi State Governor on his part reiterates his position on the creation of Katagum State.
Bauchi State has a landmass of 49,119 square kilometers, with a population of about 10 million now because of immigration and population explosion. The population of the state rose to its present number due to influx of internally displaced persons from neighboring states as a result of ethno-religious crisis and later on Boko Haram insurgency. We are greatly concerned that smaller states than Bauchi have more local governments and representatives in the House of Representatives and get more funds than Bauchi State from the Federation account. In order to address this unfair and unjust arrangement, we, as a state and as a people, and we know we have the respect and also sympathy of corporate Nigerians, that Katagum State should be created out of Bauchi State. An additional local government should be created so that we should be at par with our other states that are having more number than us.
Meanwhile, in Adamawa State, the Labour Union and the state governor appear to be on the same page concerning local government autonomy.
For the core level issues, we have advanced our arguments on the following concerns: the federal structure and the devolution of powers, particularly with regards to retaining labor and the national minimum wage on the exclusive legislative basis. Also on the core level issues are matters of pension and industrial relations. On the devolution of powers and economic and socio-economic, cultural and political issues, we have also advanced our arguments on other matters of national importance. These issues include local government autonomy, legislative autonomy, and the judicial autonomy.
For public hearing, local government, it should be provided in the Constitution that the local government should be granted autonomy in terms of their administration. The tenure of office for all local governments should be uniform throughout the Federation. Financial autonomy should be granted in the Constitution. Issue number 5, for public hearing, devolution of power. Items listed under this head are items on the exclusive legislative list. For effective management and handling of the items, they should be moved to the concurrent legislative list. The items are: 1, quarantine, number 54 in the exclusive list; drugs and poisons, number 21 in the exclusive list; police, number 45 in the exclusive list, to give room for the creation of state police for states that can afford it.
Governor Fintiri further advises that there is no perfect constitution anywhere in the world, and that what is required is the collective resolve of citizens to allow the available provisions work.
Let's take a look at some other activities in the National Assembly during the week. Not 1 or 2, but 7 observances during plenary session on Tuesday, June the 1st, for the repose of the souls of Nigerians, mostly killed in various attacks in the last few days across the country. It is an indication of the severity of insecurity in Nigeria.
It is very, very important that we step up our legislative intervention in ensuring that we protect the lives and property of Nigerians to reduce the incidence of 1 minute silence.
The first minute of silence was for a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress, Ahmed Gulak, who was gruesomely murdered in Owerri, the Imo State capital.
We urge that the security services, the police and the DSS most especially, should thoroughly investigate and bring to book all those, Mr. President, who plotted and carried out this assassination, Mr. President.
Senator Sabi Abdullahi informed the upper chamber on the killings of people in Niger State by bandits and the worsening insecurity in the state.
I have information as it affects my own senatorial district that these same armed bandits have continued their spate of attacks. And as at yesterday, they attacked a town called Beri and its environs, where they killed 8 persons, with many others seriously wounded and are receiving treatment in hospitals.
Another lawmaker presented a motion on the rising cases of gas-related explosions in Ogun State in the last 2 weeks, where 8 lives have been lost.
In the last maybe 2 weeks, we have lost about 8. I was even told that 2 of those that was in the hospital died as well, so taking the number to 10.
Not linked to insecurity, the upper chamber also honored the 21st Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Atahiru, and 10 others who died in a plane crash in Kaduna on May the 21st.
Also, to urge the federal government or the army to immortalize the Chief of Army, the late Chief of Army Staff, by naming a military structure in his honor, so that as an appreciative nation, we will live to remember them.
Meanwhile, some indigents of Ebonyi State are reacting to allegations by PDP federal lawmakers from Ebonyi State in the National Assembly, accusing Governor Dave Umahi of fueling insecurity in the state. The spokesperson for the group, Senator Sam Egu, specifically accused Governor Umahi of arming thugs and cultists across Ebonyi State to intimidate PDP members. However, briefing journalists in Abuja, a former federal lawmaker, Senator Julius Ucha, warns against politicizing security issues in Ebonyi State.
The situation in Nigeria today, in Ebonyi State, and in every other state in Nigeria, the security situation does not allow people of that status in the National Assembly to make misleading statements, especially as it pertains to security, given the security crisis that is engulfing our nation. One would have believed that people of such magnitude would have made frantic efforts to support Ebonyi State Governor in his efforts to protect the lives and security of Ebonyi people. We felt very strongly that that claim was mischievous, it was misleading, and is not founded on anything other than falsehood.
This is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.